Hello, lovely people of the universe. Welcome to yet another exciting episode of Femersations, the podcast where we speak our truth, hold space for grief, scream when we need to, and dream louder than ever before. I'm your host, Zawede Nzisa, and I'm really, really excited to be joined here in studio by an amazing, phenomenal human being who will introduce themselves. So if this is your first time here, karibu sana. If you have been tuning on or tuning in, karibu tena. And in studio, I have my lovely guest, Marylize. Karibu sana. Please introduce yourself to the audience and tell us about yourself.
Hi, everybody, and thank you, Zawede, for having me. My name is Marylize Biubwa. I am happy to be here today. I am a human rights activist and defender. I am also a Black, queer, radical, angry, intersectional feminist. I am the co-founding executive director at the Queer Republic, and I am an endometriosis warrior, and I'm happy to be here today. Yes.
Wow. What a bold introduction. Karibu sana Marylize. And
Asante.
emphasis on the angry part. I'm really happy to have you here today. And before we, get into today's conversation, I'd love to, speak about something that usually it's not like a normal conversation or it's not like normalized, yet it's a very important conversation. I'm really curious to know or to understand, like, growing up, how have your periods been or evolved? Because I know, like, when you grow up, like, the first time you get your period,
Yeah.
and right now it's really different. So I'd like to know your experience with, your periods, how it has been like. I know you've spoke about, being an endo survivor. That's very brave. And I know it was really not an easy journey.
Yeah. My period. I normally say, I think the only time I remember my period not being a big deal was probably the first 2 cycles I had after I started my period. And why those were not a big deal is because the first time I had my period, it came for 2 days. Then it pulled a Houdini on me. It just disappeared, but it wasn't a big deal. I was young, I was a child. It was like, what do I know, right?
True.
And then the second time it came, it went on for the whole 5 days. And I was like, okay, who is this? What is this? But also it wasn't a big deal because it was painless. It was what we should consider normal of a period, because then after that I don't think I've known a normal period as I've come to understand as an adult what a normal period is, because from there then I've had, most of the time it's a full-on period, 5 to 7 days, depending. When I'm having a very bad month, it's gonna go to 7 days. When I'm having what I'd consider a good month, it goes for 5 days. But also the pain, and that progressively became harder and harder as I grew older. And then, of course, I remember when I was in form 3, form 4, thereabout, form 3 and form 4, is when I started now with the ins and out of the diagnosis, but also becoming sickly and well when I'm on my period, to a point where when I'm on my period, I either have to, I don't know if your schools had it, but going to a sick room pretty much 4 out of 5 days of my cycle, but also relying heavily on medication, and also being overly dehydrated to a point where I had to have the drips put on me, because then I'm too dehydrated to function normally. And then fast forward to clearing high school, and still like it becoming worse. And I remember I had a surgery in 2010, and it's interesting because today morning I was having this conversation on NTV, and I was recapturing all this information, and I was like, a lot of things have happened. So in 2010 I had a surgery, but because I was also relatively young, but also I don't have the information and medical records for that, I can't recall much because, like I said, I was pretty young. But then from there, I have I have since created a very keen interest on my cycle and wanting to know why the things are the way that they are. Because then, while all of this has been happening up to that point, it was a lot of being told, oh, it's normal. When you grow up and eventually give birth to a child, you'll be fine. The older you become, the more you go closer to being menopausal, and then you'll be fine. And I'm like, what age do people get to menopause? And at this point, you're being told about menopause, you're like literally in your late teens, or you're just getting into your early 20s. And now you're wondering, I have to wait until I'm 45, almost 50 for me to be okay? Or I have to have a child. Mind you, I've already made decisions, which is always very interesting when I have this conversation about being child-free by choice. It's always people try to link it to many things, but like for me, deciding to not want to have children has been something that I decided a long time ago, because even if I had no reason, have you seen kids? Who wants to do that? Absolutely not me. And so when you think about it like that, and then all that is happening, and then the trips to the hospital just kept on becoming more and more. Sometime in 2019, I had a crisis with my cycle while, of course, I was living alone. And then because I didn't know much about seeing a gynecologist, going for all these things that, you know, if you have a little access to privilege that you get to go for. And so I go on Facebook just cluelessly and randomly, and I tell people, can someone just direct me to a gynecologist? Where do we even find gynecologists in this country of ours? And someone sent me a contact of a gynecologist. His name is Dr. Ndonya. I don't know if he's still based there, but he was based at the Norwich Towers at the CBD. So I go in innocently to go see the man, and I have a conversation, of course, about him. And one thing people don't like talking about, honestly, when you're going to be checked for anything to do with your reproductive health, you cannot escape the conversation about your sexual health and whether you're sexually active and what are your sexual behaviors and all that. Yes, because that kind of helps, because it's conversations like that will also give doctors a sneak peek into things like cervical cancers, because we have people who are carriers of cervical cancer, and then like we have some conditions that you can actually get because of the sexual behaviors that you have. And so your doctor will want to know, because also some things, like it took me getting a diagnosis in 2021 to know when sometimes I would get a lot of pain during sexual intercourse is because my endometrial tissue was completely like having an inflammation. And because you don't know that, you're tempted to think, oh, is it the person who I'm having sex with that is being very rough and all that? But the whole time, your body is actually having a complete inflammation, and it's telling you, I'm not okay. So on seeing this doctor, I talk to him, I tell him everything about me, and then I was getting a pap smear for the first time. But one thing that wouldn't leave me when I was leaving the pap smear situation was it felt like I was violated, but I couldn't put a finger to it. So I, like, for a good, 2-3 hours there before, leaving his office and getting on my way home, I get home and I still can't shake off that feeling. And in my true nature, because I am a certified yapper and I don't like keeping things to myself when they're not making me happy, I went on Facebook and I posted about it. And I said I went and saw a gynecologist. I had a pap smear for the first time. This and this and this and this is what happened. And I need all of you who like being experts of everything, but also all of you who are experts of these things, to come here and comment. What was your first pap smear experience like? What were the premises of how the process was done? And for doctors, what entails a true process of taking a pap smear test? When the breakdown started coming in and people started giving out their comments is when I realized my interaction with the doctor was not a normal interaction, and there was violation that happened.
Yeah.
And I didn't say anything because in my head I was like, I'll wait until the day that I'm going to pick my results, because the results for pap smear don't come like the same day. And so the day I'm going to pick my results, I'll speak to him about it. I think the person who had given me the contact to the doctor reached out and asked what had happened and all that. And when he picked up that I had picked up that something wrong happened, that's the time he stopped talking to me. And then, of course, I would reach out to him because 3 days later I was supposed to go back for results. He told me, I'm okay, I don't need to go for results. Like, I swear the only information I was given after that whole process was a text saying, you're okay, you don't need to come in for results.
Oh, no.
It was dismissive, of course, because so many things were happening at this point. At this point, sometimes I was getting a 2 time cycle every month. So I'm having 2 full-on cycles every month, and this doctor is telling me I'm okay. That is not a normal thing.
True.
Once in a while it happens sometimes, but when it's becoming a normal occurrence, it's not an okay thing. But because now of the trauma of what had happened, I was scared shitless to go, see another gynecologist, because I'm like, do I even know what to expect? Can someone sit me in a room and don't do anything with me, don't touch me, let's not talk about me, just walk me through a process of seeing a gynecologist, especially because your reproductive health is one of the most vulnerable health of your body and your life. It's something that you require hugely, but also if it's surrounded by the risks of you being violated like that, who is going to protect you when, under any circumstance, I'm not still a child where I can go into a doctor's room with my parents. I go by myself, or someone who can be able to, protect me and all that. Then what are people supposed to do? And so I left that. This was around in July 2019. In November, towards the end of November, beginning of December 2019, I was at a meeting in Naivasha. And in Naivasha is when I met my now current primary doctor, Dr. Nelly Bosire. And then I met her because we were the beautiful thing about being in feminist spaces is that you'd be told, there's a gynecologist in the house, there's a therapist in the house, there's all these people in the house. And at that point, you're at liberty to talk to all of them because they're contracted to offer their services there, and they can be able to speak to you. And while they will not go the whole extent, at least if you want counsel, if you want any, advice on anything, you can be able to get it from there. And so I pulled Dr. Nelly aside, and we had a very long conversation where I was telling her what happened. And I remember because then, if you know me, then I was at a very transitional period of my life then. And a lot of things were just, oh my goodness, what the hell is happening in my life? I remember she just told me, Marylize, go take your time and sit until you're ready, because even if you're coming to see me and I can promise you that you'll be safe, you still need to feel safe first before you can see a doctor. You cannot go seeing a doctor before you feel safe, because you will go there with the anxieties of the unsafety that you felt previously, and it might jeopardize your process. And you might, whatever it is that you receive, regardless of how safe it is, it might be clouded by that fear that you have.
True, yeah.
So I did take her advice, and I just chilled and waited. This was 2019. The whole of 2020 went by. 2021, around in April, I started my cycle around, this was my second cycle. I started it around 25th. When I started my cycle, I started my cycle like in the morning when I woke up. And by the time it was morning the following day, I had bled so much I had used 2 double packs of sanitary towels. That's like around 33 pieces of sanitary towels.
That's crazy.
And so I'm in that situation. It's frustrating to be in that situation. I call her in distress and I tell her, I don't have money, but I need to see you. I cannot not see you because I don't know what's happening. I feel like I'm having dizzy spells. I feel like I don't feel okay and I need help. I know now more than ever, whether I'm ready or not, I need help. She told me to go and see her. Went and saw her. We talked a bit. At this point, she asked for like pretty much my whole life story when it comes to my menses. And then she did some tests in the office, but also she recommended me to a clinic where I was going to get some more tests done. At this point, this is 27th now. But I couldn't go get the tests done immediately because I didn't have money. So then I told her, I'm going home, find ways to make the money, because I remember these tests costing, was it around 17,000 something? So I told her, I'll go when I have the money, I'll let you know. Went and worked on something by 29th. I went by 29th, I went back for my tests. And then when I went back for my tests, I got them done. The good thing is that these are like pictures and, you know, those invasive kind of tests. And then results also come back almost immediately because they're basically going off of what they see and making a diagnosis out of what they see. And blood samples were taken, but those results came later. But the immediate ones, I went back with them to her office, and the diagnosis came in. And just like that, weird as it was, finally it felt a bit more freeing that something they've come up with something. Because for a long time it felt like, you know, speaking to a wall, because you keep on saying you're not okay, you keep on saying you don't have a normal cycle, but everyone looks at you like, don't you know that is normal? And I'm like, nothing is giving normal here, because I can't seem to function properly like a normal human being should be functioning. So my treatment started almost immediately, because I started my treatment at the beginning of May. The roller coaster of using contraceptives, nobody ever talks conclusively about that. It's when I discovered I have some medicinal allergies, because then some things don't work together. And the reason they don't is because you have some allergies. It has been a roller coaster. I've gone from having 2 cycles to sometimes having 3 cycles, but I think the worst has been having my cycle on a prolonged period of time. The longest that I've had my cycle continuously without stopping was for 21 days. So for 21 days, you're just bleeding and bleeding. And it's not spotting. It's not bleeding Monday, not bleeding Tuesday, or bleeding in the morning, not bleeding in the afternoon. It's continuous bleeding. All you have to do is keep on changing your pad over and over and over and over again. For 21 days, you don't know how crazy you can get until such a situation happens to you.
3 days is crazy.
3 days is crazy. Now you can imagine 21 days. And then what that does to you, to your mental health, to your mobility, to your ability to show up. You're an adult. You have bills to pay. You have responsibilities. In my case, I'm running a whole organization. People quite literally expect. I always look at this and I'm like, you all are not serious. This is the person you expect to lead you. But then in that moment, you're realizing, these people actually do expect you to lead them. And so that went on until in 2022, I had my first surgery in June. It was a partial laparoscopic surgery. The excisions for endometriosis were done. But up to the point that I was getting that surgery done, in February of that year, I had gotten my second diagnosis, because my first diagnosis came with endometriosis and PCOS. My second diagnosis came with adenomyosis and an inverted uterus. That was such a shocking concept. And when you hear inverted, what do you think? Upside down?
True, for sure.
Forward, back, or whatever. But like, there's a whole concept to it. There's a biological explanation to it, and it's something that can be corrected, which was corrected during my first surgery in 2022. But then the thing about endometriosis is that there's no cure for endometriosis. Even when you're at a stage where I am now, which I'll get to, you still, as someone who has gone through endometriosis, chances of an endometriosis tissue that was missed could be there. And then endometriosis could literally occur anywhere in your body. And so that in itself is so scary. It's something that you have to live with. It's something that I have to be very conscious to make sure I go to the hospital for checkups often, so that in case something is there, it's caught in time and it can be dealt with in time. But then first surgery was done, it reoccurred almost immediately. The adenomyosis started becoming worse. The endometriosis had spread. It affected my umbilical cord and other parts like my fallopian tubes. And then the adenomyosis was also eating up the uterus, the cervix. Like, it was a whole mess. So the reason everything became a crisis to a point where I'm having my cycle for 21 days nonstop is because there's no protection whatsoever for me on the inside. It's just me trying very much to suppress with painkillers, with hormonal treatment. But at the end of the day, it's backfiring because the situation is really bad. And so come August this year, I had you would still consider it partial hysterectomy, but it is much more intense compared to what happened the other time, because the other time they only removed the endometriums. This time, now they ended up removing the uterus, the cervix, the fallopian tubes, the umbilical cord. All of that was removed. Why? Because the spreading had occurred so much. And so it's funny that you asked me, how has your cycle been? Because I've had a cycle pretty much all my life. To a point now, I don't have a cycle anymore. And I can say the last almost 2.5 months have been the most liberating months of my life, because I don't know whose smart idea it was to decide that we must bleed for all these other things to happen.
True.
Especially in a world when you think about religion, for those people who believe. I don't, but hey, we can have this conversation now that we're here. For those people who believe in God and creation and all that, what was the purpose of this God who can do anything with the powers that he has to create suffering as part of being?
True.
Like, okay, so you decided you could give birth to children. You are promising with the powers that you have, you couldn't have figured out a way that has as minimal consequences as possible. True. Because even just being pregnant itself is not an easy task. Now you can imagine all these other things that contribute to you being able to do that. And so, the last 2 months have been very liberating. And while I'm not yet fully recovered, I've had 80% of my recovery, which is the major things that needed recovery, except for one thing, because my umbilical cord was removed and a mesh was put there.
A what?
A mesh. A dissolvable mesh. So that will take a bit longer to heal. But as far as I'm concerned, apart from the little fatigue here and there, hence why when I get a chance to rest, I have to rest, because my body gets tired very quickly. But I feel 1,000 times better than I did 2 months ago. And so, I went from having a cycle to having no cycle whatsoever, and a better, well-improved life. That's my cycle.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for trusting us with, that story. I feel, the feeling is bittersweet.
Well, yet here we are.
Yeah.
Now we're on the sweet part, though.
Yeah, right now we're on the sweet part.
Yeah.
And, what bugs me the most is that, we go through things, this, okay, fine, we have our periods and all that.
Yeah.
And, we're expected to feel the pain and be quiet about it. You're expected to go heal, just figure it out on your own.
Or that's what they use to refer to us as superheroes.
Strong women.
Oh, you're so strong. I'm like, don't even try me.
I know.
I don't want to be strong right now.
I don't want, because it comes with a lot of pain, honestly.
Yeah.
And I just think how, our bodies are a lot. They are policed a lot. But the research done around is very little.
Very, very little.
And I'm saying this because recently I also got diagnosed with PCOS. It was a crazy experience because I have had my periods, like the first times it was easy, 3 days, no pain. I'm like, oh, so this is how it goes. And then at some point I also lost my periods for like a whole year. They didn't come when I was in high school. I was like, of course I'm not pregnant, so I'm not worried.
You're not worried about
I'm not worried about anything.
Yeah.
And I just went on with life. Sometimes I get my periods, sometimes I don't. But I've never thought of, taking it that serious until recently. Like 2 months ago, last month, my periods when they came, the cycle was longer. So it stayed for like 2 weeks. And then like the first days, there wasn't blood really coming out. It was like it's some sports. I don't know. I didn't really understand what was happening. And then I was worried, honestly. And then the time I'm deciding to go to a gyna, And then I was also scared because I don't know. I've never been to a gynecologist office or I've never seen a gyna. I don't know what happens. I'm just scared. And then a man, I don't know. It just feels uncomfortable.
It's
honestly.
scary. Yeah, it can be scary.
Yeah. So I just said I'll go, and then just waiting on that, the cycle ended. I was like, oh, now things are back to normal. I don't really think I need to go to, to see a gyna. But now this month, no, actually the last month, what happened? I was in the shower, like it was the second day of my period. And that night, the cramps were painful. Like I've never experienced such painful cramps like that. So I was like, I don't also like taking painkillers, the pain meds. So I was like, I'll just chill and see what happens. But the pain was too much, so I had to take medicine. The next day, I was planning my day, so I went to the shower. As I was showering, something really cringe happened. So, you know the feeling when some spot wants to come out. You feel like it's a small spot that wants to come out, right? So I was like, it's fine. I'll just let it. Because I'm in the shower, I'll wash it.
Yeah, it can just...
You know, like a very big clot came out. I was so scared. I was shaking. I'm like, what is happening? You know, I've never experienced something like this.
Yeah, and you can feel it. You can literally feel it coming down very rapidly until
it splashes.
Yeah.
It was so scary. I've never had that experience. I was even shaking. I finished taking the shower. I took my phone. I took a picture because I was like, when I go to the hospital, I need to show them.
Always take a picture.
Big.
You'd be surprised at the amount of pictures I have on my phone. Because you have to actually... It's shocking to you, and then you imagine your doctor will need to understand what exactly is happening.
True.
Yes.
No, that day I went to the gynecologist. I was so scared, honestly. And then they said, we need to do an ultrasound just to check if you're pregnant or things like this. So the ultrasound, so they were doing the one from the outside.
Yeah.
It was okay. And now he tells me, I can't see anything. I have to insert that thing now inside my vagina. And I was like, damn.
Scared.
It's so scary. How can I? Oh my God, it was so scary. So I was like, okay. So he was like, you have to go to the restroom first and then make sure your bladder is empty so that you come. I went to the loo. I called my mom. I'm so scared. I don't know what is happening. They're going to like do a test and it's like, it involves inserting things inside me. I'm not really comfortable and, I was scared, honestly. But she just told me it will be okay. Everything will be okay. You'll just let me know what happens. So when he was doing the things, I don't know what he was doing, the testing and all that. So he's telling me, like, I see that your ovaries, they're not like the same size. So one is... So he was measuring,
taking the size because there's the thing they normally do. Then there's lines that they put and the length and everything.
I was scared. And then my God, I didn't like the experience at all.
It's not a fun experience. It's very invasive, but also it's very uncomfortable.
It was very uncomfortable, honestly. And then that's when he was like, now, my suspicion was correct. You're diagnosed with PCOS, and I was like, huh?
Polycystic ovarian syndrome, yes.
Yeah, and I was like, damn.
Yeah.
All this time, I didn't know this is what was happening. And if I didn't go to the hospital, what if it got worse or things like this? And then they're telling me there is no cure. My friend, I'm heartbroken. I'm like, what do you mean there is no cure?
Also, PCOS is one of those worst ones because if you are to cure PCOS, you probably have to remove the ovaries, which... Even for my surgery, they had to leave the ovaries because ovaries contribute hugely to your hormonal balancing. And when they're removed, you become perimenopausal, which means you hit menopause before you are at menopause. Okay. And that nobody even talks about how excruciating that process is in general. So you are lucky that the doctor didn't rush into anything just to tell you, because also of all of them, PCOS, endometriosis, adenomyosis, fibroids, PCOS is one of those that if you get a good doctor and if you get an early enough diagnosis, it's something that you can be able to manage better than the rest compared. Because then the thing about endometriosis is that it enlarges. Same as adenomyosis. Adenomyosis, the problem with adenomyosis is it consumes it invades the uterus and the cervix. So it's the reason those things contribute to your fertility is higher than maybe PCOS, because with PCOS a lot of times you can get pregnant unless it's a very severe stage of it and all that. So yeah, these things. And the funny thing is we live with them and we don't know.
Yeah.
And nobody ever says anything. Like there's no information out here about it, because it's until you're diagnosed with something that's when you begin becoming a bit more curious about it. And then you're like, oh, I didn't know this thing exists. I didn't know this thing exists. So yeah, but I'm glad you already have a diagnosis, because I feel like we could sit here and say, I'm so sorry you have PCOS.
Yeah.
But I think for me, the thing is, you have it and there's nothing you can do, but we are glad you already know that you have PCOS.
Yeah.
Now, moving forward, it can be how best can we manage the situation, which it's easy to get that if you know what the problem is than if you don't know what the problem is.
Yeah. Thank you very much for, also enlightening me about some of those things.
Someone will think I'm a doctor. If they hear me right now, they'll think I'm a doctor. But it happens when you live with something for almost 5 years now. It's literally your day in, day out. That's what you eat. That's what you drink. And everything that you do, you have to consider the fact that you have those things. And so essentially, you have, in the very least, have to become an expert of your own body and how to deal with all these things that are happening.
And thank you for the honesty, sharing your story, the bravery. The journey wasn't easy, and choosing to speak up honestly is really brave, and it's also part of solving the problem, because when you keep quiet, you're also contributing to the problem.
I mean, if Kenya has slightly over 50 million people, and we have 52% of the population being women, that would mean around 26, 27 thereabout percent of 27 million of people being women. But also statistically, up to 2024, according to data, 1 in every 10 women have endometriosis. So if you can do that math, what is 1 in every 10, like if you divide 27 million divide by 10, and then when you divide by 10, you get the number of groups, and then those are the people who quite literally have endometriosis. And it's interesting to think about it that way, but in reality, that's the case. The problem is, because we don't talk about it, many people don't even know have endometriosis. Many people have normalized pain, and I love that the conversation we were having today morning was with one of my doctors who did my surgery in 2022, and he was like, pain is not even normal.
It's not normal.
Your cycle is not supposed to be painful. Is it supposed to be uncomfortable? Yes. Is your body is literally shape-shifting. So it's supposed to feel things, but it's not supposed to be pain that you can't move, you can't talk, you just want to lie down. That's not normal. And because we are a society that has normalized that, especially for young girls, we tell them to brave it up and they will be fine eventually. And I'm like, no, nobody should have to do that. And I think that was also one of the biggest struggle. It's you go through a society that normalizes this, and in the process, what is normalized becomes inherently being gaslit. When you say you're feeling something, people tell you, what do you mean? See, that's a normal thing. So we all go through it. Meanwhile, 1 is probably not the same. 2, we are probably both having different issues that we've not even gotten diagnosed for. And so that progresses to now you have to handle all these things you're dealing with. You have to figure out, because also managing these conditions is not cheap. In a world where we are still talking about access to healthcare services, you don't want to imagine how difficult it is to access this kind of healthcare services, especially when you factor in different things. Like a lot of our local insurances don't even insure these kinds of sicknesses. They will tell you, no, our packages do not allow us to
include.
ensure that, because they know how expensive it is to treat it. So it's a lot of things that we have to consider. But I think, just like you said, part of the conversation can start with us genuinely beginning to talk about these things. Not just women talking about them, but also men talking about them, because a big percentage of women who have endometriosis, PCOS, adenomyosis, are women who are having sex with men. And whether men like it or not, these men also need to be aware to know, because marriages are ending just because
Cannot give me a baby.
a wife cannot give a baby, or a wife does not feel like having sex, or a wife is scared of having sex because of pain. One of the things that was very like consistent in occurring for me before my surgery was the fact that sometimes I would have sex and there will be blood everywhere. And I've had interesting reactions from different people. It's only pretty much just one person that I've been intimate with, and there was blood involved, and they didn't panic, at least not immediately and there. But also they didn't make me feel terrible about it, because other people would make you feel like, are you sure you're okay? You're like, bro, it's not like you don't know I'm not okay. Even I have gone beyond, because people don't realize some things when they're happening, the same way you're seeing it the first time is the same way it's happening to me for the first time. Like when it happened to me the first time, I was like, what is going on? Why am I bleeding? Did something happen wrongly? But thank goodness, because I have a very good doctor who is always keen to answer my questions, but also volunteers as much information as possible for me to be able to know how to maneuver situations. She made it very, very easy for me to be able to, understand the situation and be able to handle it with much more calmness than I would have if I didn't have that information. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. And as we're talking about, breaking the silence, which ties perfectly to today's conversation on basically why you raise your voice and challenge like harmful norms happening around, what was the first time, or what was your first experience speaking up about injustices in general? Because I know also when you choose to speak up, like you said, you can tell someone you're feeling pain and someone is like, this is something normal. It's like they discredit what you're feeling type.
Yeah. I think growing up, and as a child who grew up in a home that I wouldn't say was really a safe home, but also a child who has gone through so much sexual abuse and trauma when I was younger, I didn't do much speaking. And so speaking was a way of coming back to myself, because I remember the first time I ever spoke about sexual violence was 17 years post the violent act happening. And you're young, and you have older people in your life, and these older people make decisions for you. And I think one of the things that I learned at a very young age is adults really misuse their authority.
True.
They misuse their authority, because then when you're trying to speak is when you start being told, don't air the dirty linen of the family out there. Don't speak about your family like this. And what that does to kids is it teaches kids not to speak. And because kids are in their formative years, everything that they learn during that time is core lessons. These are lessons that shape who they become. And so for me, I think realizing speaking was important was me taking back my power and learning how powerful, like the power of a human being lies in the voice that they have, and that if you suppress that voice, you will never know what lies on the other side of the freedom that you seek so badly. In 2016 was the first time that I spoke about the violence that I've experienced. And on speaking about it, it opened some sort of a Pandora's box, especially for me and my life in general. But what that came with then is a power that I never knew resided in me. Because it's not really to say I never spoke when I was younger. It's really to say I spoke while being told, you can't speak, you're a child, you don't know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Being gaslit into believing your experience doesn't make you an expert of what is going on with you and all that. But then 17 years later, when I'm speaking about these experiences, what I learned then was there's actually power in speaking.
Yeah.
And I think that has been a lesson in motion for me, not just for me, but if I do say so myself, for the whole world. Because currently what the world is doing is we are speaking more about things that have been happening for a long time that we've been silent about.
True.
Like think about the war in Gaza, for example. 70 plus years of it going on.
Yeah.
And it's only, this is something that the first time I interacted with things to do with Gaza and Palestine for me was in 2016. And it's only in the last like 5, at most 10 years that I've seen more people speaking about it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we've found this crisis here.
Happening.
At what point are people thinking this is the time to romanticize the conversation? Or is it what is happening in Tanzania currently? One of the elections that were happening in Tanzania in 2015, I happened to be in Tanzania at that time. And one of the things that I knew was a disaster waiting to happen in Tanzania was the fact that when we were in Tanzania at that time and we were trying to talk about elections, you know, we are Kenyans. We like talking loudly about everything. But then we're in that country and we're being told, here we don't speak about politics. And if you're speaking about politics, especially during elections, you can't speak loudly. It has to be in whispers. Because if they hear you and you're not in CCM, which translates to Chama cha Mapinduzi, you are not going to have a good time. And so we were advised not to speak about it because also we are foreigners, we are traveling there.
Safety.
Anything can happen to us with regards to safety. And I saw that. And for me, what is happening in Tanzania currently is not shocking because these are people who have been suppressed for so long. And that's what happens when a voice is suppressed. All this to say, there's something powerful that happens when you speak.
True.
No revolution happens without losing people. The only sad thing is that we are losing people not because of a revolution, but also because of people using the power of their voices.
Selfish
And now, one of the things that we have to figure out, not only as Tanzania or Kenya,
Africa,
but also the whole of Africa and the whole of the world, is how do we become comfortable with voices? Because sometimes we behave like we've not been able to speak our whole lives, and now it's the first time we are hearing our voices and they're irritating us. But yet we've been speaking, we just don't listen to each other. One thing I can guarantee is we've all assumed deafness our whole lives because we don't like to give an ear to things that really matter, to the political processes that our personal is always political. So why don't you want to hear people speaking about politics? When we speak about our bodies as women with bodies that require so much love, care, and attention, why is it that when you speak about it, even to people who claim to love these bodies, people still would not want to listen? It's about time not only do we speak, because I think people are speaking more and more and more, have we taught ourselves to listen? Even as we speak, even for me, one thing I had to learn is to speak, but also to learn to trust the power of my voice. Because before I expect people to trust the power of my voice, do I trust the power of my voice? Do I believe in what I'm saying? Do I trust that what I'm saying is right by me? Because if I don't believe it, one person will tell me what you're saying is not true, and I'll go back to silence. But if I believe it, everybody who tries to shut me up, I tell them, you shut up and let me go. Okay? Yeah,
and that's so beautiful because, you're just highlighting that speaking up, it's not about volume. It's about truth.
It's about truth.
It's about listening. And it's so brave, I'd like to, know, or I'm really curious to understand, like, how has your identity shaped how you show up and how you speak? You speak up about certain issues.
As a queer person, as a woman, as a non-binary person, as an African child, as a Black person, I think one of the things that we grow up experiencing is separating our identities from how we live our lives. And I think for me, my identity has been part and parcel on how loud I can project my voice, because what I learned, especially as a queer person, with so much discrimination that happens to people in the LGBTIQ community in Kenya, what you learn very quickly is you cannot show up with your queerness everywhere. But I think when I was sitting with myself and I was retrospecting and I was asking myself, what does it mean for me if I showed up without a part of myself? Like, say, for example, and this is just an analogy. Let's say, for example, our body parts, we could remove a body part and leave it at home. How logical is it for me to show up without an eye one day and then without a right leg another day and then without what does that make me become? And the answer to that was, I can only show up as myself or show up as nothing. Because when you show up without a part of yourself, the world sees you as this person who needs help. But when you show up as yourself fully, now the world changes that and sees you as a threat. And then I asked myself, what would I rather be seen as? As a person who needs help or as a person who is a threat? And 100 times over, I'd rather be a threat. As long as me being a threat does not mean harming people, but rather occupying space and showing up fully as myself, and in the process being much more happier, being much more joyous, but also bringing authenticity and proof of life in every sense of it, because queer people are always asked, we don't have many queer people, or we don't have queer people around, or we didn't have queer people then, where have they come from? No, the reason they couldn't show up as themselves is because of their identity. They were made to show up as part of themselves. And what we are saying now is there's something powerful about showing up as yourself. Not only do you know which rooms you belong to and rooms that you don't belong to, you also know how to cast people who are harmful to you aside. And so for me, identity has been everything that has contributed to the person that I am. And every time I think of the person I am, if I abandoned any part of my identity, I get much more strength to have more voice, because it's scary. It's scary for me to think of a day I will have to change a part of myself, leave a part of myself behind for me to become something that I want to become. That if I can't become everything while I'm being myself, then those things were not meant for me, and I don't need to become all those things.
Thank you very much for reminding us that, your identity is really personal. And it just highlights, your authentic self. If you really want to be authentic, you can't show up as, something that you're not, or you can't show up as not yourself fully, honestly. And thinking about that, how does resistance look like for you when you say, like, there are rooms that this is somewhere I don't feel comfortable, or somewhere I get judged, or how does resistance really look like for you?
First of all, resistance looks like, just because you're not in a room you'd want to be in doesn't mean you don't have a voice. You can make a voice from wherever it is that you are. And I think one of the most beautiful manifestation of that is the fact that now we are living in a world where something happens in Tanzania, and in a heartbeat we know it. Even if they've shut down the internet, we still know what is going on. And that in itself is a very beautiful thing, right? But also, one of the things that you learn very quickly is the more you learn to trust your voice, the more you have to learn to also trust that other people have voices too. And so when other people have voices, you are forced into learning that just because you're not in the room doesn't mean there's no people in the room who have same interests, same voice, same issues that they're fighting like you, who can be able to speak into that. So then these people, my voice isn't just loud when I'm in the room. My voice can be loud even when I'm out of the room, when we understand that I am as loud as the the least loudest person in the room, because if I shout, another person shouts, and we all shout, then we make much bigger noise.
Nice,
Now
yeah.
imagine I'm not in a room that I want to be in, but I'm still shouting where I am. And the person who is in the room that I wanted to be, but I am not, they're also shouting.
Yeah.
They might not be shouting a lot, but because I can still shout where I am and another person can shout where they are, we are all shouting, and somehow we are still projecting, and we are still being able to say the things that we need. And so trusting that in allyship, but I don't like using that term because I feel like we like to think just because you trust that someone is there, they're your ally and all that.
Yeah.
That's not true, but just trusting that somehow, some way, there are people everywhere who are like you and who want the same things that you want. Maybe they'll use a different path. Maybe they'll use different channels to be able to get there. But they are still fighting for the same thing that you're fighting, and trusting that whenever you're in a room, in the true spirit of Maya Angelou's quote, I come as one, but I stand as tens of thousands, recognizing that when I'm standing up, Marylize as Marylize, but also Marylize as a queer person, Marylize as a human rights activist, Marylize as a feminist, that when I am shouting, it's not just me. The divinity of the power that I'm using to fight is coming from the fact that I am because other people are, and I am made of other people. So when I'm speaking, I recognize that I'm speaking for other people, and when they're speaking, I recognize that I'm being spoken for as well.
That's so beautiful. Yeah. And was there any moment that, you spoke up or you used your voice and you saw other people showing up the same way, or showing up generally, even if it's for a cause or, something that you're really passionate about?
That has been essentially the theme of my life. I have never been the kind of a person to look at things being done in a way that I feel like is not right and then to stay silent. So for me, for the longest time, in fact, I was having a conversation with someone, I don't know if it's yesterday or today, and I was telling them I feel like in my human rights work, in my feminist work, I'm experiencing some sort of a rebirth, because I've gone through a season where, the way you are blackouted in a community that you work in because you never keep quiet about things when they're not happening okay. And I've always been that kind of a person. And trust me, I have not changed. People have become much more okay with hearing the truth even when it's hard. And I can appreciate that. And I can say without fear or shame that I've contributed to people having that much more acceptance to being corrected, to doing the right thing, to struggling with being told, you are wrong, or you're a bad person, or you harmed people, and all that. And because I've seen the both sides of it, it has brought so much pride in me as an individual, because what it has proven is it may take long, but the truth will always remain the truth. Nobody will ever change it. People will manipulate it. People will push you aside because of it. People will even deny you food on a table that you deserve to be on. But that doesn't mean it ceases to be the truth. And when you just believe, and this is probably the only time I'll speak about belief in this way, when you just believe in the power of the truth that you speak, the truth will never change. The truth will always remain the truth. What changes is time. What changes is people. What changes is circumstances. And when change is constantly happening as it should, then eventually change will align with the truth. And when change begins to align the truth, then a rebirth happens. And I feel like that is the experience I'm having currently, where I can still be able to show up. I can still be able to say, you're not doing something right, you're doing something wrong. And that doesn't inherently take anything away from me, because then there's a plethora of people who can recognize, something has not been done right here. Well, how can we do to correct that? But also, how can we prevent doing this wrong thing again over and over?
And how do you hold space for I know me, I've been in rooms with you, and I know how you I know you immediately see something wrong, you just be like, I wouldn't keep quiet about it. But in working with movements and being part of like the greater movement, like how do you hold space for healing, that accountability also, while still staying rooted in, you know, your activism and your course?
You can't heal people if you have not figured out a way to heal yourself. So, and for me, healing has been part and parcel of who I've become today. One, because I was forced into healing. It's not something I woke up one day and I was like, oh, I'm in my healing era and I want to do everything to heal. It was literally life circumstances that forced me to heal. And then also, you can't hold people accountable if you're not accountable yourself. And accountability isn't what you do when people are watching. Accountability is what you do when nobody is watching. Because if you feel like if people are not watching, I can steal that money. If people are not watching, I can be an abuser. If people are not watching, I can harm 1 to 3 people. Then that's not accountability. Accountability is when nobody is watching and you still consciously remind yourself that I shouldn't do those things because they are harmful. And so the reason I'm able to hold space, but also to strike a balance, is to remember even a double-edged sword, it's not all the time that a double-edged sword is trying to pierce somebody. So when it's time to pierce, you pierce. But a lot of times, before you try to use a double-edged sword, it's just there, it's not harming anyone. And for the most part, when you really think about it, a double-edged sword is a tool of protection. It's only a tool of harm when you decide to use it in a harmful way. So, like everything in life, the nuance of it. I like to say there's, even in words, there's no good word and bad word, there's just words. Our perspective, our context, how they affect us is what makes them good or bad. And in every circumstance, that's what happens. Even with people, there's people and then there's good people and bad people. And what makes a person a good person is because of how you experience them. What makes a person a bad person is because of how you experience them. But before all those experiences come, they're just people. And that is basically everything with life. To be able to recognize that it's a process. Some bad things will happen.
True.
Some good things will happen. Some harmful things will happen. When harmful things do happen, remember to always hold people accountable, but also remember to always believe people who have gone through experiences of violence, abuse, who have been victims of other people. Because I feel like it's much easier to ask for forgiveness from a person you were told was an abuser and you found out is not an abuser than to apologize to a victim you never believed. Yeah, because then what inherently you lose there is your capacity to be able to be a safe place for a victim of any form of abuse. And I don't think anyone wants that. And so believing people and then being able to call things as they are. If it's black and that's that on that. If it's white and it's white and that. And I'm not using black and white here to mean one is bad and one is good, because it's weird that we think black is a bad thing. It's really just to say, if you consider something a bad thing, it's a bad thing regardless. White people can be bad too, so white doesn't mean anything.
You're a good person.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for sharing that. And now, as we wrap up this conversation, what would you tell a young person who is afraid to speak up about violence, or who is afraid to even speak up, or doesn't find a safe space to speak? Because honestly, for you to be able even to speak about some certain things, you need to be safe or to feel safe. Like, what would you really tell them?
I'll speak in two perspectives. One is how I see it. Two is the reality. The reality is people are not safe, right?
Yeah.
And so when you can't, it's okay not to. To always remember, showing up also entails you being able to. It's not just the waking up, the going and showing up. It's, are you able to do that even? If you're not able to, it's okay. But then what I think is none of us is safe. So the fact that you're waiting for you to be safe to speak is a manipulation that this system have created intentionally for you to wait until you're safe. But what you are yet to realize is you will never be safe. So then you're faced with a decision to make. Are you going to stay silent your whole life, or are you going to speak regardless? Is it speaking scary? Absolutely. We are having, like in Kenya, we're still speaking about abductions until today. We are having now Kenyans being abducted cross-border in TZ even. And that is a whole conversation.
Being silent.
People who are being abducted are not even people who spoke to begin with. These are people we get to know of after they've been abducted, not before they were abducted. So I promise you, the way I see it right now, safety and security is an illusion that we are made to create. People with privilege assume their privilege purchases them safety and security. But what you don't realize, you're as safe as the unsafest person around. And if over 90% of Kenyans are unsafe, in what world do you think you're safe? You're not safe. Because the people you're trying to protect yourself from are the people who are unsafe. And are the people who are going to make you unsafe, render you unsafe. We are in a government that is looting left, right, and center. Why do you think your things will not be stolen?
Everything is unsafe.
Yes, like everything, everyone, everywhere, it's unsafe. So safety is an illusion. And if you're going to wait for when there's safety for you to speak, I'm sorry to say, but you will die without speaking. And in the true honor of Raila Odinga, to never fear speaking, because there's nothing as I'll speak tomorrow. Imagine if by 14th of October 2025, Raila had not spoken and he was waiting for 15th of October. That man would have never spoken. But this man used everything in him, his youth, his whole life. He even put his family on the line to be able to speak truth to power every chance he got. And thanks to him speaking, some of the freedoms that we enjoy, right? Whether people recognize or not, whether people are jilted lovers about Raila or not, thanks to this man, there are some things that we enjoy that either these things are gonna become strange for us to enjoy, or even if we will still be able to enjoy them, it will be in part. It won't be with the freedom that we enjoyed them when he was here. He's one of the politicians pretty much that I know that never really stopped even the media from painting him in whatever picture they wanted to paint him. Because for him, it was, in the very least, I'm very true to myself. Will I be good to everyone? No. Will I be bad to everyone? No. Every day I'll be something to everyone. And even for me, as a millennial who has voted 4 times already and I'm waiting to participate in my 5th time, I have seen all those transformations. And yes, I carry anger for Raila, especially with things that happened last year. But even with the anger that I carry every day, I don't forget that I have been lucky to experience part of his leadership. I've been lucky to know the kind of a person he is. But over, beyond, and above that, I'm among the luckiest people because I never grew up in an environment where I was told Raila is a bad person. So I was able to develop my own consensus and view about who he was as a person. And I feel like what Kenyans have done hugely is failed Raila in describing the enigma that he was, because a lot of people have failed him by thinking, only speak good about this man. This man never wanted to be spoken just in goodness. He wanted to always be spoken about in truth. And if you can't speak about the man in truth, then how are you honoring him?
Thank you for sharing that, and may Baba's soul rest in eternal
that one
peace.
Person, I really want him to rest in peace, because
I know
he really he sort of never rested while he was here. And I feel like ultimately, if death is what we have been told it is, then I truly do hope he is really resting.
For sure. Thank you very much, Marylize, for sharing all that, for sharing your stories, for trusting us. And, we're holding space for the healing, for your truth here. And thank you very much. I've really enjoyed this conversation and I've learned a lot about my body.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure. I really thrive in speaking about my experiences. One, because I grew up with zero experiences to refer to. And so my way of fixing that is, if I had nothing to refer to, I'm going to be something that people can refer to.
Yeah.
So that if we are asking, what happens when you do this? I'm not coming to say I have an answer, but I'm coming to say, I've been through this and this is what I did.
What happened,
If it can work for you too, go ahead. If it doesn't, also give yourself the freedom, but also the courage and the belief that you can also be able to figure out, and then share with the world what that looks like.
Yeah. Thank you for that parting shot.
Thank
Marylize.
Thank you so much.
To our audiences, thank you very much for listening in. If there is, lessons that you could pick from Marylize's stories, I think, clock it.
Clock it.
Yeah, thank you very much. Until next time, bye.
Bye, everybody.